The orbital defense platforms around Kepler 442b died one by one, their brilliant flashes of destruction painting the void in brief, terrible light. Commander Xylix of the Altarian Defense Corps watched through the reinforced viewport of Station Omega as the last of their shields flickered and failed. "Sir, the Vorthak fleet has broken through the outer perimeter," Lieutenant Kessa reported, her usually steady voice cracking with barely contained fear. "Estimated time to planetary bombardment, 14 minutes. Xylix's forearms trembled as he gripped the command console. The Vorthak hegemony had come without warning, their massive dreadnoughts emerging from hyperspace like metallic locusts. 300 ships strong, armed with planet crackers and enough firepower to turn Kepler 442b's surface into molten glass. "What about the distress beacon?" Xylix asked, though he already knew the answer. "Still broadcasting on all frequencies, sir, but the nearest Galactic Council fleet is 6 days away minimum." Kessa's tentacles drooped with despair. Even if they left immediately upon receiving our signal, she didn't need to finish. The Altarians would be extinct within the hour, their peaceful civilization reduced to cosmic dust. 3 billion souls snuffed out because they had dared to refuse the Vorthak's demand for tribute. On the main screen, the enemy fleet reorganized into bombardment formation. The Vorthak ships were massive things, all jutting angles and weapon arrays designed purely for destruction. Their hulls bore the scars of 1,000 conquered worlds. "Sir?" The communications officer's voice cut through the bridge's despair. "I'm detecting something on long-range sensors. A single contact approaching fast from the outer system." Xylix felt a flutter of hope, quickly crushed by reality. "One of ours?" "Negative, sir. The signature doesn't match any known Altarian or Council vessel. It's moving impossibly fast, reading velocity at 0.75 light speed and still accelerating." "That's impossible," Kessa breathed. "No ship can maintain structural integrity at those speeds." But there it was on the tactical display, a single blue dot racing toward them through the void, leaving a trail of twisted space-time in its wake. As it drew closer, the sensors began to resolve more details. "Configuration unknown," the sensor operator reported. "Hull composition appears to be some kind of reinforced titanium-carbon composite. Massive fusion signatures. They're running their reactor far beyond safe parameters. And, sir, they're not slowing down." The single ship blazed past the Vorthak fleet's outer pickets so fast that the enemy sensors barely had time to register its presence. Warning klaxons began to wail throughout the hegemony formation as their admiral demanded answers his crew couldn't provide. Then came the transmission. It cut through every communication channel simultaneously, overriding Vorthak encryption and Altarian protocols with casual ease. The voice that emerged was harsh, mechanical yet somehow unmistakably organic underneath, as if filtered through damaged vocal cords and bitter experience. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Federation warship Retribution. You big ugly bastards picked the wrong planet to terrorize today." Xylix's translator struggled with the alien words, but the intent was clear. Somehow impossibly help had arrived. The human ship, for that's what it had to be, one of the mysterious species from the galactic rim, continued its suicidal charge directly toward the Vorthak flagship. It was tiny compared to the enemy dreadnoughts, perhaps a tenth their size, but it moved with a predator's grace. "They're going to ram the flagship," Kessa gasped. But at the last possible moment, the human ship twisted impossibly, its momentum carrying it in a spiraling dance around the Vorthak command vessel. Weapons fire erupted from every port and launcher, not the clean energy beams favored by most species, but crude, primitive projectiles that nonetheless tore through Vorthak shields like they were tissue paper. The enemy flagship staggered under the assault, armor plates venting atmosphere as the human ship's guns found every weak point with surgical precision. But the Retribution wasn't finished. As it completed its first pass, something detached from its hull, a sleek missile that accelerated to nearly light speed before impacting the dreadnought's reactor core. The explosion was visible even from Kepler 442b's surface. "Impossible," Xylix whispered. "One ship cannot—" Captain Chen's voice cut through his disbelief. "Altarian forces, this is Retribution. Stay clear of the engagement zone. We're about to show these genocidal fucks what happens when you threaten innocent people." The human ship had already lined up its next target. This time it didn't bother with fancy maneuvers. It simply opened fire with everything it had while charging straight through the Vorthak formation. Enemy return fire washed over its shields, but somehow they held. The ship's hull glowed cherry red from absorbed energy, yet it kept firing. One by one, Vorthak vessels began to die. The enemy admiral, veteran of 100 conquests, found himself facing something he had never encountered, a single opponent that simply refused to acknowledge the impossible odds. The human ship fought like a cornered animal, all fangs and fury, turning the ordered battle formation into chaos. "Sir," the communications officer reported, his voice filled with awe, "I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures. More human ships are arriving." But they weren't warships. Xylix watched in amazement as a ragtag fleet of human vessels dropped out of hyperspace. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, even what appeared to be a mining barge. All of them bristling with hastily welded weapons and armor plates. Captain Chen's voice came again, now joined by dozens of others. "This is the merchant vessel Lucky Strike. We heard someone needed help. Liner New Horizon reporting. We've got medical supplies and evac capabilities. Mining ship Iron Lady here. Our particle beam was meant for asteroids, but I reckon it'll work just fine on these bastards." The Vorthak admiral, faced with this impossible development, made the only logical choice. The surviving ships of his fleet began jumping to hyperspace, abandoning their conquest in the face of humans who had apparently declared war on the entire concept of acceptable losses. As the last enemy vessel disappeared, Captain Chen's battered warship limped toward the Altarian station. Close up, Xylix could see the damage. Hull plates missing, weapons melted, the entire ship looking like it had been through hell and back. "Altarian Command," came Chen's tired voice. "This is Retribution. Sorry we're late to the party. We came as soon as we heard your distress call." But how?" Xylix managed to stammer. "Your ships were days away at the galactic rim. How did you arrive so quickly?" There was a pause, then something that might have been laughter. "Commander, when someone calls for help, humans don't wait for convenient travel times. We jury-rig our engines, push everything past the red line, and get there however we can. Because nobody dies alone on our watch." Xylix looked out at the human ships, damaged, improvised, crewed by civilians who had answered a stranger's call for help, and felt something shift in his understanding of the galaxy. The Galactic Council spoke of measured responses and calculated risks. But humanity? They simply showed up when needed, consequences be damned. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Don't mention it," Captain Chen replied. "Now let's get your people some proper defenses. Because trust me, those Vorthak bastards will be back eventually, and next time, we'll be ready for them." As the human fleet took up defensive positions around Kepler 442b, Xylix realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. The age of calculated conquest was ending. The age of humanity had begun.